Hello and welcome to LifeTalk for February 5th, 2019. I'm Mark Crutcher, your genial host, and I'm joined by the usual suspects, my daughter Sheila.
Hello.
My assistant Renee, and of course,
Hello.
Ernie's back this week.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie, that's the name we gave him, right?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's still been pretty quiet.
He's been pretty quiet lately.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got an important show here today, and I think people have been anticipating this for a while because we've been telling them this important issue was coming up.
Yep.
We have revealed in the past how much legalized abortion devastates American women for a lot of various reasons. But of course, we did the under the radar violence
Yes.
that exposed the number of women that are
Beaten.
killed.
Yep.
We focused just on the ones who were killed.
Yeah.
Because they refused to have
An abortion, yes.
Right. And then the child predator issue, which we exposed, the abortion industry is protecting men who rape little girls.
Absolutely.
Including Planned Parenthood.
Including Planned Parenthood. They're the biggest part of the abortion industry. They're the biggest offender here. Now we're going to continue this trend of exposing problems in the abortion industry that negatively impact women. And what we're going to be showing people or talking about here over the next 3 shows is the impact of abortion on women being raped in these raped in these abortion clinics.
Right.
And sexually assaulted.
And
when they
sexually
go in.
assaulted in other ways,
Yeah.
right.
It is.
Now, we've known about this for years because I wrote a book called Line 5, which I think probably most people that are watching this have read. And then we had a chapter in there about this back in '96. We had exposed and documented the number of women that get raped in abortion clinics. And it didn't get a lot of play at the time. And we decided to revisit this issue. You and I talked about it because of things have changed. The timing wasn't right in '96, but it is now. People are more attuned to the issue of institutional sexual assault,
Yes.
partially because of the situation with the Catholic Church.
Well, and the Me Too movement.
Me Too
and-
movement,
yes.
right.
In the entertainment industry.
Yes.
And also, it's amazing that from 96 till today, it's still happening. And it's still
going
an
on.
issue.
And it was been going on a long time before that. And that's one of the things that our report documents is that this is not a new problem. This has been going on forever.
Yes.
The abortion industry is fully aware of it.
Yes.
They're doing nothing to stop it.
Right.
They're trying to cover it up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Cover it up, and it is impossible to find cases and to read about this going on, this particular.
Yeah. What we identified in '96 when we did this originally was that the abortion industry was pretty good working with the media in keeping this under the rug. And one of the things that the media will do, or they were doing at that time, was when an abortionist got caught raping a patient or sexually assaulting her in some other way, when they reported about it, if they reported about it at all, they would not identify him as having worked at an abortion clinic.
Right.
They wouldn't identify him as an abortionist. They would identify him as just a local doctor or a local physician. And they would never mention abortion.
Right.
They didn't want it to reflect on the abortion industry. And that made it very difficult for us to find cases.
Yes.
Very often, the only way we would find cases is if we were researching just doctors in general who'd done this and we recognized the guy as an abortionist. Then we go back and pull the file, and sure enough, the media never reported that he was an abortionist,
Right.
that he worked for Planned Parenthood,
Right.
or whatever.
Well, and there is an example of Roger and Ian Hardy.
Right.
How there was, it was a 6,000 word article.
Yeah, in the Boston Globe.
Yeah, never once mentioned abortion, Planned Parenthood.
Right.
I mean, he raped many, many women and sexually assaulted them
Over many years.
Over many years, yeah.
Because they can't show the truth of what abortion is and what abortionists are like.
Right.
They can't reveal that.
Reflects too badly. And of course, the Boston Globe is one of the more radically pro-abortion newspapers. And like you're saying, they did this story on Roger Ian Hardy, talking about him raping all these women and sexually assaulting them. Never mentioned that he worked at 2 Planned Parenthood facilities.
Yes.
Never mentioned that he was an abortionist.
Right.
Out of a 6,000 word article, they never mentioned it. Actually, I think it was 3 articles. It was broken up
Yeah.
into 3
Yeah.
2,000 word articles.
I think so.
Never mentioned that he was an abortionist. Never mentioned that he worked for 2 Planned Parenthood facilities. So this problem of how they're covering it up has gotten worse since 1996.
Yes.
But we did, and I gave you the job of finding new cases, and you found some new cases. It's almost impossible unless you're looking at these list of doctors who've been caught up in this, unless you know that they're abortionists or you have some way to go research and find it out.
Right.
They've covered this up really well.
Really well. Yeah.
They have,
Yeah, I know that there is a doctor in California that
Right.
is an abortionist. But I just, I just can't find the proof
we can't get
anywhere.
We know for a fact that he is.
Yes.
See,
And we didn't include him. Now, in our report that's on the internet starting today, you can go to our website, lifedynamics.com/rape,
Yes.
and you can find the information there. And we're going to be adding new information in the coming days. But we have, I think, 30 or 32 cases or something
There's about 30 cases, yeah.
of actual cases that we have the documentation on.
Yes, many more.
But we
that
left
are-
out many
yes.
more,
Yes.
right? Because we couldn't lay our hands on the documentation, although we knew it was out there.
so it's really impossible to know the extent of this issue. They cover it up so well because they want to keep the money coming in.
Right.
To them, women are just collateral damage. They obviously don't care about them. All they care is the dollar sign.
Right. Yeah. If I think you're right. It's collateral damage. I think they look at it and say, if a few women have to get raped so that abortion can remain legal, then that's the price we're willing to pay.
And it's more than a few women,
It's
though,
more
too.
than a few. That's the
Yes.
point I was going to get at. Every time there's a pattern here that we have seen in the past. Every time one of these guys is outed, it follows a very specific pattern. A woman or two come forward, they accuse him, somehow it winds up in the media, and the second it winds up in the media, women flood in.
Yes, they do, because they don't feel embarrassed or like they're
They're
only
empowered.
ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're empowered. And the classic example of this is a guy that we've had a running battle with for years named Brian Finkel. He's an abortionist in Arizona, large-scale abortionist. For over a 20-year period of time, he did 1 in 5 of all the abortions done in the state of Arizona.
That's a ton.
That's an astonishing deal.
Yeah.
And we knew because we were going after him for malpractice cases many years ago, and he and I have had a lot of run-ins together. We were on national television opposing each other on this.
He writes you letters.
He still writes me letters from prison today.
Yeah.
But he was finally, what finally broke the back on his deal was, it wasn't just a he said, she said thing. His employees now started coming forward and saying, we're not going to cover up for you anymore.
Right.
An employee he'd had, for 13 years?
Yeah.
13 or 14
years.
something like that, that had admitted she had covered up for him.
Yes.
And-
on tape that we have.
Right. On a tape
Yes.
that we have, she admitted
Yes.
that she was covering up for him. And finally, she said, I'm not going to cover up for you anymore.
I can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he fired her.
Yep. He canned her.
And then she wound up with the Phoenix Police Department. The Phoenix Police Department, for a reason I still don't understand, gave us, because we were working with them and had been working with them.
Right.
But I guess they appreciated what we're doing. They gave us the tapes
Right.
of the interviews with his employees.
Yes. Several of them.
Several of them, 4 of them.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. This woman had worked there 13, 14 years and whatever it was. And she said, I told him I would no longer cover up for him. I wasn't going to cover this up anymore. And he fired her.
Right.
I think what's important in this case, though, is he was one of the ones that got caught. He was one of the ones where, employees came forward
Right.
or women who were victims came forward. He is only a small drop out of a big pond.
Right.
Right.
We don't know the extent this is happening, but we do know that still abortionists that have sexually assaulted or raped women, they're still working in abortion clinics.
Well, that's one thing you discovered when you did your research. 4 of them
We have 4 abortionists
That we can
out
identify.
there. Yes.
that have been involved in sexually abusing their patients or
Yes.
raping or sexually assaulting
Yes.
are still working as we speak today.
That's right.
They're in the abortion clinics today.
Right.
And the thing about it is that people need to understand, going back to this deal of numbers, we know now that it's not a random situation where it's just a few here and there. We know now that literally thousands of women have been raped in abortion clinics.
It's a widespread problem.
And the reason we know that is, if we use the Brian Finkel example, It's just one example. But we saw this pattern continually repeated. When Brian Finkel was accused, and he finally got indicted, it got into the newspaper because he's so high profile and they couldn't keep it out of the papers. Within the next few days, that was one woman accused him, 106 more came forward
Yes,
and accused him.
that's right.
I was working with the sex crimes unit of the Phoenix Police Department at that time. We were providing them some information that they didn't have about Finkel doing this because we had visited with a lot of his victims. The woman that was running that investigation out there, when it was all over, and Finkel did get eventually convicted, and he's in the Arizona State Penitentiary as we speak.
Yes, he is.
And like
Writing
Sheila
you
said,
letters.
he writes me letters once in a while. But anyway, which is very bizarre.
Yeah. His letters are weird.
But anyway, the woman from the sex crimes unit told me that they were absolutely convinced, all of her investigators were convinced, that over the 20 years he had been in practice, he had raped in excess of 1,000 women.
And that's
1,000
just-
women.
and
That's just one guy.
One abortionist.
One guy.
And abortionists that haven't even been convicted, we don't know how many they have raped. We don't,
But even the ones that have, I mean, we had other examples of this where it comes out in the public, and then all of a sudden all these women start flooding in.
Yeah, and many times in the research,
Right.
where one would just come in or two, and then it was
All of a sudden the floodgates open.
Yeah.
And what we know is that, according to FBI figures, the last thing that I saw was they had a congressional investigation into underreporting of rape cases in America. According to the FBI, among all rapes in America, we're not talking about date rapes, which I don't even like that term. Rape is rape. If it doesn't matter if it happens on a date or if it's just some guy grabs you out of a parking lot. But anyway, among rapes of total strangers in America, they say 84% of them go unreported.
It's a lot.
84%.
Yeah.
So then you add another layer on top of that. A woman that's at an abortion clinic,
Yes.
she is less likely to report than if she had been just walking across the Walmart parking lot and somebody
Most
grabbed her.
definitely.
Because we know that the vast majority of women who have abortions are having it to keep someone in their life from knowing that they're either pregnant or sexually active or had an abortion. They're not going to go out and talk about it.
or even if, it's not about keeping people from knowing that they're pregnant. Even if that's not the case, there's still a stigma with abortion. So
Sure.
if they say, hey, this abortionist sexually assaulted or raped me, then, a lot of people are going to have to know that they went in for an abortion.
Right. And that keeps them quiet.
Well, yeah, and the abortionists obviously know that they can get away with
Right.
it. And there's, a questionnaire as well that asks these women why they're here and who knows that if they're here. And
They have everything they need. When they take an intake form from one of these women, they have everything they need to know if they can rape this woman or not. And I even had a nurse call me one time right after Line 5 came out, and she worked for an abortionist that we've now identified as one of the people who was documented as having raped patients. And he went from state to state. He'd lose his license in one state and go to another one.
yeah,
And she said she wondered if she was setting these girls up to be raped, because she said on our intake form, we changed it at one point. He asked for it to be changed or demanded that it be changed. And the way it was changed was they added a question on there. If you're married, does your husband know you're having this abortion? Or if you're a minor, do your parents know you're having this abortion?
right.
If they put no, and sometimes they would even add on there, my parents must not find out, do not call my home. She's raped.
Because
He knows she can't say anything.
and he knows that, she's vulnerable. Nobody's there, that can protect her.
Right.
She's, a sitting target.
Right, she is.
Well, and nobody's allowed to go into the back room. It's just her and the doctor and supposedly the nurse that's supposed to be in the room.
But
which
a lot
is-
of times they leave.
I tell you what, let's take a break here for robots, and when we come back, let's pick up on that particular issue because that's very important, and we've got some stuff coming up on that issue. So anyway, let's take out just a few minutes here for robots, and when we come back, we're going to pick up on that.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe v. Wade, and those who defend it are known as robots. This is how they think.
Sometimes a woman isn't ready to have a baby. In that case, maybe the best thing she can do is have an abortion and ask God to bring the child back at a better time.
Well, first off, when a woman is pregnant, it doesn't matter whether she's ready to have a baby or not. Unless she can figure out a way to stay pregnant forever, she is going to have a baby. The only question is whether she's going to have a live baby or a dead one. But one way or the other, she is having that baby. As for this bring it back at a better time argument, it makes you wonder just how stupid the pro-choice community thinks women are. I mean, do they honestly expect women to buy into this loopy idea that if they get pregnant, they can convince God to put the babies he gave them into some sort of suspended animation and then bring them back at a time that's more convenient? Whether you're talking about biology, theology, or simple logic, this is pure idiocy. So let's cut to the chase here. Remember this: for God, there is no such thing as an unplanned pregnancy. He plans every single one of them. The other thing to remember is that babies cannot be put into limbo. We cannot just make them go away and then magically reappear at a time that's better for us. A woman who submits to abortion might have another baby one day, but the one she kills is dead forever. And that's what this bring it back at a better time gibberish is designed to keep her from thinking about. All right, we're back. You had brought up the issue of women, nurses or employees don't go back very
Yes,
often
they're not in the room.
with these guys. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there say, a lot of women out there say, every time I go to the doctor, there's a woman there.
Because that's a regular OB/GYN
That's
or
not an abortion.
that's not an abortionist.
Now, one of the things that's interesting is on these tapes we have from the Phoenix Police Department, the interviews with, what we have are the interviews with Finkel's employees.
Yes.
And they say they didn't go in.
Right.
Now, Finkel says he never touched one of these women. He never went in with any of them without them there.
Yes.
They all say, no, that's not true.
He would send them out or that they
Right.
would just leave. And there's oftentimes even locks on the inside of the door.
Right. We found a case like that where there was a lock put on the inside of the door.
Yes.
So he knew that he would not be disturbed. But also, what's more important than these women, these employees saying this, we're going to next week have an interview with one of Finkel's victims.
Yes.
She came here, you and I interviewed her.
Yes.
And we're going to run that as next week's show.
Right.
And she said that nobody was in there.
Yes.
And she even said that when he left, he had rubber gloves on when the thing started, but when he was there alone with her, he took the gloves off.
Right.
And she
Yeah.
knew something was not right.
Her interview is so revealing.
Right.
The mindset of these people.
It is.
This problem exists for a lot of reasons, and one reason that makes me so mad is that these nurses don't seem to care or protect these women. I mean, the doctor, the abortionist, is supposed to care about these women, and so are the nurses, and they obviously don't.
Right.
And that's one reason why this problem exists, is because people put their trust in them, and then they betray
Well, that's
it.
an issue that Renee and I talked about a lot while this thing was going on. And then we talked about with this young lady, Janet Lynn, that's going to be on the show next week, who's one of Finkel's victims. This woman knew that something wasn't right. She could tell something wasn't right, especially when Finkel took off his gloves.
Right.
But there's nobody there.
Right.
And one of the interviews that was on the Finkel tapes that we have, the employees were saying that this wasn't just a once-in-a-while deal. It was every day. And one of the women, I think the one that had been there 13 years, you can correct me on if this I'm wrong, but I think she's the one who said every woman that was attractive got molested,
Yes.
either
Every
raped or sexually assaulted. She said we could look out in the waiting room and say, oh, he'll do that one or he'll do that one. Now, that's obviously horrible, but they're just as guilty. They're sitting there leading these women back there.
Right. Knowing what is going on.
Knowing
and
what's gonna happen to them.
I don't know. I would walk away for one. I wouldn't do it. But But yeah, she is just as guilty knowing that this person is about to be sexually assaulted or raped or something even worse, and not admitting it, not
doing anything. And you know, it's you would think that if all these employees were men, you might say, well, men would just blow it off and say it's no big deal. But these are all female employees.
right.
And they're sitting there, and the analogy that I make, and I think we talk about it in the interview next week, is when we see a situation where, let's say, a stepfather is having sex with his 12-year-old daughter, and he gets arrested, and then it turns out that the mother knew it,
Right.
but she protected her husband rather than protect her daughter. I think most people look at that and say, you know what, she's every bit as guilty as he is.
You better believe it.
She's no damn bit better than he is.
But what can we expect? One reason why this problem exists is because the very nature of the people who work in the abortion industry.
Right.
You can't expect much from people who, for a living, kill innocent babies.
Yep, and if you want to see what kind of people work there, go to the YouTube and watch the interview we did with the 3 down in Houston.
Abortion clinic employees.
Employees, babies killed daily. Talking about all the things that went on in it. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Sheila. I mentioned it to Renee last night. I went on and checked that deal. Almost 800,000 people now have gone on and watched that video that we did.
Yeah, it reveals
Yep.
what the abortion business is like.
But the fact is, these women are sitting targets. They're sitting ducks. You know, it's and you know the question becomes, and I've had people ask me this: do we think it's more common than in other forms of medicine? Because we know it does go on in other places, and I absolutely do. Because first off, you've got women who are more vulnerable because they can't. Most of them have somebody they can't afford to let know where they are.
Yeah, they need to keep it a secret.
They have to keep it a secret. They're ashamed of what they're doing anyway. And we had a lot of the women that we interviewed years ago told us that they didn't report it because they felt more guilty than the abortionist. I remember, like it was yesterday, this one woman said, you know what, at least he didn't kill me. I killed my baby, but at least he didn't kill me. And you can't believe the number of women that we had when we were interviewing them years ago that would say, I just looked at it as I knew God didn't want me to do this. I knew God was angry with me for this, and this is the way God punished me. And, you know, you have to sit down and say, wait a minute. God doesn't work that way. No. God doesn't send somebody to rape you because you had an abortion. That's not what happens. But it doesn't matter. That's what they feel happened. And, you know, that one woman told me, she said, at least he didn't kill me, and I'd feel hypocritical charging him when I think I did something worse than he did. So there's all these factors that go in here that make these women exponentially more vulnerable. Then you combine that with another issue, and that is, like Sheila was mentioning, what kind of man becomes an abortionist? These are the scum, the washouts, the losers, the degenerates of medicine. So you take morally defective men who have an all-female clientele, an all young female clientele. It's not like he's seeing 80-year-old women for abortions, right?
Right.
So he's got an entirely female clientele. They're all young.
In an isolated environment that
very isolated.
And that they intentionally want the doors to stay closed on so that people can't see inside what's going on.
And you combine all these factors, and he sits there and he knows she can't say anything. He knows if he's got a cute little 15-year-old girl sitting there, on the form it says, do not call this girl's house. She does not want her parents to know what she's doing. She said her daddy will kill her if he finds out she was pregnant. He knows no matter what he does to her, she's not saying anything.
Right. It's game on.
She's not going anywhere.
Or, you know, poor women or minority women, you know, that think that, hey, nobody's going to believe me.
Yeah, I'm going up against this doctor,
Yeah.
you know, this guy with a medical degree.
That's
And
right.
who's going to believe me? And we encountered a lot of that back when we were interviewing patients. Now, it's hard to get these women to come forward. And we have this young lady next week that we're interviewing. But you talked to others, and one in particular I thought you were making some real headway with, and it looked like she might be willing to come forward
Yeah.
But in the end,
No, she asked me to call her at a certain time one evening, and I did. She didn't answer. I called several more times, and I even sent texts. But she told me on the phone when I did talk to her that she was in a really dark time in her life. Her husband now doesn't know what had happened, and she just doesn't want her name out there. She doesn't want. She just wants to put this behind her. She wants to leave it behind and not ever.
and mainly
Talk
she's
about it
got
again.
she's got a new husband
Yeah.
who does not know she was pregnant, did not know she had an
She
abortion.
has kids that are older.
And imagine how many women out there have been in that situation.
Oh, many.
And that's, why it's hard to document how big of a problem this is.
Again, we know for a fact that thousands of women have been raped in abortion clinics. We know that for a fact. That is not debatable.
Right.
When you've got one guy like Brian Finkel, who the authorities say, we know he raped more than 1,000 women, that these 106 that came forward are just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So we know the scale of this problem
Right.
is enormous. We don't know exactly how big it is, but we know it's big.
Yeah.
And we also know that Planned Parenthood and the rest of the abortion lobby is doing nothing about this. They know it's happening. They're doing nothing about it.
And the mainstream media
Media is covering
is,
it up.
is in
know-
cahoots
Are
with
protecting them.
Yep.
Yeah.
If they would do, and let's make sure everybody understands something. We're not defending the Catholic Church. None of us are Catholic. And we're not defending anything the Catholic Church did. I've always said, I don't care who it is. If you rape somebody, if you molest a child, I don't care if you're the Pope, you go to jail. If you're a cardinal, a bishop, a priest, whatever. I
Your
don't care.
name is put out there. People know that you're a sexual predator, and you get punished
You
for
go to
it.
jail. I don't care who you are. But if the American media were to spend 5% as much time on this issue as they spent on the Catholic Church issue, this thing would blow up.
It would be huge.
It would be enormous.
Yeah.
And we're out of time for this week's show, but I want to let everybody know next week we're going to have this interview.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good interview.
It is a good interview, and this young lady had enough courage to come forward.
She
and,
did, and she's very sweet.
She's very nice. But I know you got a couple of things you want to bring up before we get out of this segment. But first, I want to talk about, just real quick, something just have people think about. The abortion industry always uses rape as an excuse for abortion. You start talking about preventing abortion, well, you're going to force a woman who is raped to have an abortion? And we know that like 0.5% of all abortions done are done on women who are pregnant through rape. It almost is,
It doesn't exist.
it just hardly exists at all.
Hardly, yeah.
But let's just say in a case where it did exist, a woman is raped, she gets pregnant, she decides to have an abortion, and she gets raped at the abortion clinic. Think about that poor woman,
Yeah, I mean, that's
what her life is like from that point
that's
forward,
tough.
right?
Sure, yeah. She's going to be messed up for a while.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And who does this woman ever trust again in her life?
Yeah,
She can't trust anybody.
yeah.
She's saying, I'm going to work, a guy grabs me, assaults me, rapes me, I get pregnant, I go to this place to have an abortion. That's an emotional roller coaster right there, all of its own.
Devastation, sure.
And then I get there and he rapes me.
Yeah.
You know, it's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. You had a couple of things you wanted to
Yeah,
introduce here.
it's important, to know that they obviously don't care about women, just like
Right.
you were talking about. And the media, mainstream media, isn't going to cover this. And so we need people to take action on this, to let everybody know that this is going on. Because not only do we need to protect these women, but we also need to protect the babies as well. I mean,
Right.
it goes hand in hand. And so what people can do is they can visit our website about this. It's lifedynamics.com/rate.
/rape. Right.
So they can go there, they can read the report, and we have other things on there as well. We need people to share this project with others. We were going to have it be on the front page of a magazine.
And they
but
backed out at the last
They
minute.
backed out at the last minute, I guess, because this project is too controversial
Too
or
hot or
something.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
They gave some excuses, but I didn't buy them.
Yeah. And we eventually want this to become a congressional congressional hearing. We want lawmakers to take action to protect these women. So you can go on our website and sign a petition as well calling for a congressional hearing.
Yep.
So it's important that people take action to protect these women, to help protect babies, and let people know that this is going on.
Well, also, we've produced, everybody's familiar with our little action cards, and we've put out over 500,000 of those over the years. And they have little pro-life sayings and stuff, and you just leave them around. They're a good advertisement, a good way that the media can't prevent you from reaching people with them. We've now produced one for this subject, and you can see it on the website too. Again, that's lifedynamics.com/rate, or if you just go to lifedynamics.com, you'll see the pointers too.
Under our products page,
Right.
the action cards.
Anyway, to go in there and read the report and read the actual cases, and we're going to tell you right now, the cases are hard to read.
They are.
It's not a fun read.
You and I-
We tried so hard to make it
as palatable as possible.
Thank you. I don't know what a good word is, but yeah, it's just. I mean, sometimes you just have to be blunt and just say how it
We
is.
cleaned it up a lot,
Yeah.
but it's still nasty, and
Yeah.
so that's just the nature of what we do.
Right.
When you're going to go out here and take on the role like Life Dynamics has of exposing the seamy, dirty, filthy little secrets of the abortion industry, you can't do that unless you know what they are. And so it's a difficult thing to read, but it's something people need to know.
Yeah.
And then they can order the little action cards. I wish we could afford to give them away for free, but we can't. But just order a couple of hundred of the action cards and just leave them around, and it directs people to that website.
Right.
Because the point that we make here is there is not a business environment in America that a woman can walk into that she's more likely to be raped than an abortion clinic.
Right.
This is the number one business environment where a woman might be raped.
Yes.
And
And nobody's doing anything about
nobody's
it.
doing anything about it. Most people don't even know about it.
And some people don't even care.
Right. And, well, that's the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
They don't even care.
And the media and some
Right.
politicians.
Right. But we've got to talk about this. It's unsavory. It's uncomfortable. And you and I are going to have an interview coming up in couple of weeks after
Right.
about what it was like to actually do this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a fun project. It was embarrassing sometimes, and I didn't like
The majority of the time.
I didn't like some of the conversations that you and I had to have while we're writing these things
Yeah,
up.
and-
And I'm sure they were worse for you than they were for me.
Sometimes something like that should be kept between you and your spouse.
Right. Or even
Nobody.
not even that.
Yeah, with this, issue.
But anyway, that's what had to happen, and that's the role that we took on when I started Life Dynamics. We're going to show what's really going on out here. I don't think American people are going to reject abortion until they start rejecting the abortion industry and connecting the two.
Right.
And we did the People of Choice website to show people what kind of people there.
Yep.
And now we're doing this, and we've got some other things that we're planning. But we want to really encourage you to go to the website, lifedynamics.com/rape, and also order the cards and do whatever you can to help spread this out there. People need to know about this.
Sign the petition and
Sign the petition.
share this far and wide.
Yep, that's right. Y'all got anything else?
Nothing else?
Any comments we need to talk about?
Nope.
All right. That's it. We will see you next week. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing the interview with the young lady that was one of the Finkel's victims. And then the week after that will be a show with Renee and I talking about what it was like to actually do this project. And we really want to encourage y'all to go on that website, study this stuff. This is a major deal. This is something we need to get out in front of the American people. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops.